Here we are. Hello, my name is Patricia and welcome to my channel. This is my little series, Mystic in the Matrix. So if this video is finding you, we have an alignment, and thanks for joining me and taking time to listen. Before I move forward today with my topic of choice, I just want to I just kind of want to go over how I go about getting my topics and how I choose them. So, I mean, my topics can come through when I'm meditating, they can come through if I'm vacuuming or I'm doing dishes, things like that. So I quickly write down something that I kind of like channeled into and thought, okay, that's a great topic. And then I put it in a little container, and then later I take those and put them on a nicer piece of paper and put them in a little envelope, and then I put them into my little container of this one. And so when it's time to make a video, this way I'm not overwhelmed by all these topics, all these things that want to come through. So this way it kind of lets there be some space for me to be able to choose and work with the ideas, but also even more so because I actually trust that Spirit will choose the right one for the video I'm going to do next. I think that's really important, that I have that trust, because it's because of Spirit that I'm actually here. I'm an introvert. This is really tough for me to be sitting in front of you making videos. So I hope this gets a lot easier as we continue down the road. So yeah, anyways, that's that. So the reason why I'm telling you this right now is because the next topic is actually something that is very uncomfortable for me to talk about. But I do talk about it. It's not something that it's not something in my closet. It's something that I am open about. And it is that, and I have to be careful, I guess, on doing videos and stuff, of which words we choose. So this is the topic that I am talking about. I am a DV survivor, and never in my life would I have ever thought that someone like me would be a DV survivor, or even like in that situation. I considered myself, I was a world traveler. I was a very strongly opinionated young woman, and I just never conceived that that would be something that would happen to me. I just, I ruled my world, right? So being a mystic and psychic and stuff, how would I not see that coming? That's probably a main question people would ask. Actually, I did see it coming. There was a psychic that I had met when I was on my travels, and she had mentioned that, because my question was, could I have children? Because I always wanted to be the mom. I always wanted to have my family and have my children. So that was my question, can I have kids? And she's like, yes, but it's gonna come at a price, because this guy's fucking crazy. And so I was like, oh, okay. And then me thinking that I could somehow change that part of my destiny, still have children, like I can physically do it, but, find that better person, what have you. So when, a few years down the road, I was back in Canada, and I met a young man, and we got married. And this other part of his personality came out. He actually, quick story fast here, or a little story fast. We went on our honeymoon in Nepal, because we love hiking. We're mountain people. And when we were in Nepal, the Chitwan National Forest, there's a group of us, and we were going hiking. We were going hiking through the forestation area, and we were going to go see rhinos. That was going to be one of our main attractions that we would see, the rhinos. And so as we were walking through, we got to this grass. And I mean, when I'm talking about grass, I don't mean like grass that you could, go running through. This is grass that's like 7 feet high, and you can't see through it, man. You can't see through it. So here I am in this group of people, and we have a guide who's a very spiritual man, and he was very kind to me. So here we are, and we are going through this grass. Well, I couldn't see the person ahead of me, so my ex-husband kind of like moved me aside, went around me, and went forward and left me behind. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm by myself in this field of grass with rhinos somewhere, and the next thing I know, the hand that came through was my guide, and he took me by the hand, and he got me through all the grass. And then when we got to the middle of the circle, there was like this circle of just land, and there's this one little tree in the middle of it, and who was holding on to the tree was my ex-husband. I don't know. That's just a really fun memory for me. And anyways, so by the time I got home from that trip, by the end of a year, we were divorced. You know, God bless him. We've spoken since then, and he has apologized to me for his bullshit. I don't know. I don't want to be calling him out here, really, but it was. I thought he was abusive in his demeanor. You know, when the glass hit the wall, and that was it. That's when I'm out of here, dude. You're the fucking crazy dude she was talking about. That's what I thought. And after I left him, then I met the father of my first two children, and long story short, at that point in my life, I was going through a lot. You know, I discovered, well, the reason why I came back to Canada was because of my father and the shenanigans that was going on in his life, which I will get back to in another video. I can talk about that here. But anyways, I just felt in a really vulnerable position at that time. And when you meet somebody, when you're in a vulnerable position at that time, they can just manipulate you. So let's try not to, I'm not going to dwell on details or really get heavy into this. But 2 months into it, I was pregnant, and I like to say I was held mentally hostage with death threats and fear. So it became a very intense situation. I had 2 children with this man, and I eventually was able to free myself and my children and create a new life for us. And you know, I'm just gonna say they're doing fabulous. They're doing really well. I'm super proud of them. We've all done well. I'm gonna, you know what? My last video was about ego. I'm gonna give my ego a hug and say, you know what? Good job, Mom. You know, you weren't perfect. There's so many things that I wish I could do differently, but I did my best. And I think anybody coming out of that situation, that's the attitude you have to have. You have to have a lot of self-acceptance of allowing yourself to be in a position like that. That's a huge part of the healing, and amongst other things. And then once you kind of get past that, then you got to go a lot deeper, and you get into your shadow work, and how do you know, that place of how did you become that vulnerable that somebody could just get in there and take over you. That work, that's where I've been working for a long time, is in that shadow work. So yeah, as I've done so much healing, I've done a lot of healing from this, and although the PTSD is still there, I have a lot of trauma, and yeah, the PTSD is still there, and I want to say why that's difficult to heal. And I'm sure so many people out there could contest to this. I think it's really important because it's difficult to fully heal when there is a war waging towards the feminine species, the feminine energy. It's, you know, the man on man's world. I mean, it's all over the internet. It's in our daily lives, for fuck's sakes. Look what's coming out now. Rape academies. What? You know, so it made me ask this question of, is there an uprise, or are we just seeing what's always been there? Is it because the darkness feels like it can just come out now and it doesn't need to hide? Or is there's so many questions, isn't there, about how this is all going about. But you know what? Because I did go through all that, because I know what it is to go to those depths of life. And you know, I there's many times many times I could have been gone. I could have been taken out. And something protected me, protected my kids. Um, I have a lot of faith and trust in that, and I also know that it's part of it's cultivating my own personal strengths to be able to continue to be defiant, to find my voice again. I, there's so much. This is a really tough one to talk about, isn't it? Because we see what's happening on the internet. Like, wow, what young men are being conditioned to do. I think this is being cultivated. You know what? I really believe that there's this war that's been raging, and it's been raging since the beginning of time. I mean, let's go back to Adam and Eve. Eve wasn't Adam's first wife. Lilith was Adam's first wife, and she was defiant. So what happens? She was kicked out of the Garden of Eden, sent out, and demonized. That's what she was in our history. She was demonized to be this horrible female energy, blah, right? And I think all women have been carrying this. I mean, you look at the fucking witch hunts. You look at throughout history, just throughout history, how women have been, you know, our first job was in a brothel. That should tell you a lot. um, in the modern world, that probably, I don't know if that actually was our first position, but here in North America, I bet you it was. I bet you the Wild West, the first job that a woman could take would have been in a brothel. Um, so I like to think, well, I don't like to think, but I do think that DV is cultivated into our societies, into our family roots, as another way of dividing our society, as a way of controlling, because I think this force that's trying to run our matrix, this world, especially the matrix, like there's levels of it, right? Because there's also that world of magic and earth and Gaia and all of that too. But the man's world that's been created in our society, I think they're really afraid of this feminine energy rising and taking over, and it's absolutely ridiculous, unless you're someone who wants to rule the world with greed and terror and just being a total horrible human being, or not a human being, because there are others out there, aliens, let's call them aliens, let's call them just other beings that are living amongst us, who are also up there at the very top, who are, you know, cultivating all of this drama. So perhaps the first thing that we need to be doing right now is, because I think the great divide is between men and women, it is that abuse that happens in the home. And that is where we need to begin our healing, is in our homes. It begins with ourselves. If you come from an abuse, if you are an abusive person, then that healing has to start within you. And then from there we get to build, we need to be healing our families, our individual selves, our families, our societies, our you know, our clans, our children especially. We so need to be healing them. And that's going to happen when we find balance again between men and women, when women are not afraid of men's strength and men are not afraid of women's strengths, and when men are not afraid of their weaknesses and when women are not afraid of their weaknesses. This balance, you know, it's something I think we're all kind of really like working on right now within ourselves. I think we're all learning this balance. And that's what this great divide is about. Like, that's the thing that can really throw us all off kilter as human beings. that will stop the human connection is that balance between men and women. And that's why I have hope for in our society still. I still have a lot of hope and faith because because we're still all here. We still are, you know, finding our personal self-expressions. We haven't been completely bonded down to where we could be. And I think there's still a lot of hope. I think there's still a lot of hope there between it, but we must stop the great divide between men and women. I think that's where we're going to have our great comeback as a human. I think that's where we're going to find the way to move forward, because that's the key. You know what? It's kind of like, think of it, think of it in the sense of, you know, when the government has those things where they need two people to have a key to make something bad happen, because not just one person can push a button, they gotta have two people to do it. I think men and women, or, you know, masculine, feminine. I don't want to just put it as men and women, because I also believe in the gay communities as well. So it doesn't matter what your gender thing. This is not about gender. It's about feminine and masculine energies, okay, as well. So let's put it in those terms too, please and thank you. I believe to make that wholeness, you know, it really takes that masculine, feminine energy. And so all this terror we're seeing on the internet with young men, just fuck, the abuse that's happening, you know, that's out of control. One person at a time. We need one person at a time. And when you do heal that side of yourself, you have to, it's your obligation to pass that balance on. You know, we have to spread this. We have to heal our children. Because if we allow this whole masculine energy thing to wave over us again, we are fucking done as a human species. Yes, I amplify that word. We will not survive what will be to come. So please, as a precog warning, as somebody who has been through the front lines of this domestically, yep, we got to get our shit together. And women, let's, the man or the bear. Okay, I've met a few bears actually on my hikes and they didn't bother me, but I've also met a few men on my hikes. Actually, it was a man who said, hey, there's a bear. So, you know, I'm trying to find that balance. I have a lot of reason to have attitude towards men. I am not just a survivor of what happened to me. There's a lot of things that got me to that point. All right. And yes, it always had to do with a man. Breathe. So I digress. My apologies. Wow. Yeah, it's really hard, hey, when you're trying to just, you're breathing through it and you're trying to talk about it. And so it's good to talk about it. It's good to talk about it and you know, hear your own thoughts on it and your own perspectives. Oh my God, I feel like I'm going around in circles because I told you this is a really hard topic for me and it's hard for me to stay focused. I'm just going to breathe for a moment. Do you know, it's been 10 years for me since I've even actually dated. There was a lot of patterns I had to heal throughout my life. And so in the last 10 years, I've been really working hard, doing a lot of shadow work. And that's why I can talk about these things. I'm going through there's a lot of energies happening right now too with the whole planetary stuff. And I'm feeling very, I suppose. So yeah, having to deal with this topic and knowing how much destruction's happening towards women and children right now. And also, did you here's a statistic. Do you know that on statistics, it takes a woman 7 times to leave her abuser before she does it for real. It took me twice because I did not want to be a statistic like that. And I loved myself too much and my children. And as scary and terrifying as it was, the thought of the other option was way more scarier than grabbing my children and going. So here's a little message to any of you out there who needs to leave an abusive situation. Let me tell you, if that person is holding over your head that you will never succeed financially, because they're no longer there, chances are you're actually going to do financially better. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be poor. I raised my kids and had to be incredibly resourceful, and it did take a village to help me raise my kids so I can get them through sports and things like that, and school, and just, you know, to have you got to have a clan. Or if you, because, and that's a hard thing to do too, because when you are in those situations, one of the things that happens is isolation. It's a very isolating experience to have. So when you do come out, make sure that you get involved in communities. Like you'll be so amazed at your local community leagues. And if you have children, sign them up with things, and then you're going to meet other people who are surprisingly going through very similar things. Nobody's walking around with the tag that goes, "Hi, my name is, and this is what I'm going through." It's not like that, but you do find each other. And I think now there's a lot more support groups that are happening, especially with what's going on in the internet. So do make sure you take care of those resources. And always remember, the fear of stepping out is way less stressful actually than the fear of staying in that situation, because you know damn well chances are things are going to get bad. So, you know, anyone who's in those situations, please, please, please get out, especially if you're in, I don't know how all the other countries are, but I can say that here in Canada, we have a lot of resources for, especially for women, men too though, a lot of resources to help you get back on your feet. It was actually because of this that I was able to go to university, which we'll talk about it another time because I love talking about education. Surprisingly, because I actually come from a background of I was in a special needs class in high school. So yeah, blah, 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 blah. So that's a part also, you know, people who are ADHD, who in the spectrum people, a lot of people who have, you know, felt different their whole entire lives. A lot of, that's a huge brew for many who wind up in unhealthy family situations. So those are other things to be talked about as well, and we will. So, but that's, yeah, those are other things that kind of get people there. It's part of the vulnerabilities, that shadow work. You know, if you are in a situation and you're leaving, please take at least a good month to do some really good shadow work, and then, you know, to get the guidelines for it, and just to set a basis of something to work with. One of the first things, actually, really quick here, one of the first things that, I wish I had my book, I was prepared, I would show it to you. I'm not sure where I've got it on my bookshelf, and I'm looking over there because my bookshelf's over there. One of the things that got me through huge transition, because I was like, when I grabbed my kids and I ran, I was fucking messed up. I was at that point of blah, 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 blah. For reasons of, it became ugly, it became very dangerous for not just me, but also for my children. If you ever had to beg for a child's life, you understand how easy it is to get to a point where you're ready to break. So I grabbed my kids and I ran. 2 weeks after, and I can hear my dog whining, sorry if you can hear her. 2 weeks after, I was at this bookstore and they had these books out on a table, and I had like $5 in my pocket. All right, that's it, $5. And I'm going through these books, and I seen this one book, and it had $5 tag on it, you know, sale, $5. And I looked at it and it was called the HeartMath Solution. I want to do a whole episode on this book, actually, the HeartMath Solution, because look into it. I'm actually starting to hear more things about it now. For many years, I never heard anyone talking about it, but now I'm starting to hear it being mentioned here and there, and how it's really gained more of the access throughout the networking on the internet. And it saved me. It actually taught me how to, oh, I can't snap that finger because it hurts, how to snap out of going into mind trauma panic, how to stop and take a breath, calm, soften. It was an amazing book. And so I read it and learned some of the exercises that were in it. So yeah, the HeartMath Solution, if you come across it, that would be an amazing one, or anything like it. Things to learn how to do exercises, to learn how to calm your whole nervous system. And that one was just an amazing thing for me. So I wanted to throw that out there since we're actually on that complete topic of, can you read this? This is Scribe. This is actually Scribe, and I heard that the big system can't read it. So I thought, no, let's have fun with that, because you know what? I learned how to do Scribe, and I learned how to do Scribe perfectly, and I'm really, really pissed that it's been taken out of the school system, because we'll talk about that another time too. Scribe, this is it. So anyhow, speaking of Scribe, subscribe, like, boop, 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 boo. Subscribe and like if you choose to. It's my pleasure to be here to make these videos. I'm not sure how many I'm going to be making, but for now I'm here, and I'm kind of finding it a little bit fun, even though I'm an introvert. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. If you know any of you out there have any other advice for people who are going through, bloop, bloop, please use my channel. Put something in the comments there for people who need help, or you know, whatever country that you're in, if you know helplines, things like that. I'm very happy to help. I'm very happy to pass on those kind of messages, because again, that's where I feel like a lot of this healing is going to be starting, to heal our humanity, because that's where it's all beginning, is in the home, and that's where we need to get to it. Like I said, the shit that's going on the internet, how did we get there? Because mamas and papas, our children need to learn better. My kids get out of line and things like that. Kids, remember where you came from. Always be kind. Always have good intentions. Remember your boundaries. And also be very careful about who you get involved with in life, because you have to be discerning. These are things to learn. Discernment, boundaries, self-love, and listen to your intuition. If it says run, run. All right. I'm going to let it stop there, and I will see you at the next video. Thank you so much. Appreciate you listening, and I hope this has been inspiring somehow to somebody out there. Kind of felt good for me to get it out. So, okay. I'm going to go tend to my pup. She's out there crying. All right. Bye.